Hello and welcome to this special TPK tutorial video. In it, I'm going to show you how to create this listening bluebird from TPK's new Beautiful Birds Calligraphy Flourishing worksheet. I love doing these sorts of flourishing exercises for two reasons. First of all, they are excellent practice. So, a lot of times with drills, you're just making rote movements that might get kind of boring. But in this type of drill, you put together a whole bunch of flourishes, and then what you're rewarded with is this fantastic bird. So that's the first reason these are great to do. The second reason is that you can use a motif like this on pretty much any project. So you're talking cards, mail art, sketchbooks, bullet journals, whatever you want, you can use this on, which is why today I'm going to demo how to create this listening bluebird by making it on an envelope. So this is your little freebie lesson. This listening bluebird is part of the Beautiful Birds Calligraphy Flourishing worksheet, and then there are 4 additional birds in this worksheet. So if you like this sample exercise, then I suspect that you'll love the full worksheet. And if you watch to the end of this tutorial, I'll have a treat for you that might incentivize you further to snag the entire worksheet. So what I've done here, these instructions are right here in the worksheet set, but I feel like it means a little more, can hit home a little better if you can see them on video. But we start off with a bluebird outline. So in this particular case, I have cut out my bluebird because I suspect that I'll be using this motif often, and you can do that too. I used an X-Acto knife, which made it a lot easier, and all I'm going to do is use a pencil to trace around here. Okay, now I just want to clarify, you do not have to use this particular tracing technique. You could always put your envelope against a bright window or a light box, and you should be able to see through the envelope, or you can just freehand draw. But this is a surefire good technique as well. And then once you're finished, you just sort of eyeball where to finish up the beak. And then add a little rectangle to the eye to signify that there's light bouncing off of there. And then for the foot, I guess these would be talons, we just separate that right there. So now we are done with this outline, and let's get started with the flourishing. I've chosen to flourish my bluebird with turquoise Bombay ink because bluebird, turquoise, that just makes sense to me. But of course, that's something that you should certainly play around with. And I'm going to be using an oblique calligraphy pen. Often when I post videos like this one, at least one person will say, "Why are you using an oblique pen? You don't need to have a right slant." I just find that this pen helps to keep my hand out of the way when I'm flourishing. So that's why I like to use it for this type of project. Of course, you have the instructions on your free PDF, but sometimes it's just nicer to see somebody else do it in front of you. So we start off with the eye. And obviously this is not flourishing. We're just filling in the eye. And you fill in everything but the rectangle you made. Nice. And then you fill in the beak. Now there are 2 ways that you can go about taking on stroke number 3. If you have a lot of time and you want to be careful, you can use your mechanical pencil to actually draft out the flourishes, and then you can write over them. For me, I already know the flourish pattern because I have it right here, so I'm just going to try to mimic that, because really, as long as your flourishes are all contained within the bluebird outline, they don't have to look exactly like this. The collection of flourishes will still look like a bluebird. So let me just try to mimic the flourishes the best that I can based off of what I have here. One very, very important thing to remember, you can always rotate your paper as you're flourishing. I think a lot of people get into this mode where they think that they have to keep the paper upright in front of them. And so that makes it really difficult to flourish. But I'm almost turning this like a clock, except counterclockwise, because I want to give myself the very best angle as I'm making these flourishes. And when you're flourishing, always think oval. Because if you get flourishes that look like a perfect circle, that sort of gives your pieces a juvenile look. So always thinking oval. And then I'm just going to try to fill out the top part of the head here. I think it's important for you to see this video because I'm not staying exactly true to what I'm seeing in the worksheet set. Every single flourish that you make, every single version of this bluebird that you make is going to be slightly different than the one that you made before. So it's okay to make those modifications just based on exactly what's happening as you're flourishing that particular day. All right, so now I've gone a lot further down here than I did in the instructions. That's okay. The next step is number 4 here, all of these green lines. And I'm just going to fill in, I suppose, the neck with these downward loops. I want to pause to point out that these stroke junctures, so where upstrokes meet downstrokes, that's a really good opportunity to pause and collect yourself in order to flourish more. For me, I need frequent breaks while flourishing in order to get nice non-shaky strokes. And then this number 4 stroke continues up. Just to fill in the rest of the torso a little bit better. And then we move on to stroke number 5 here on the left, being very careful not to smudge the ink here. This is where I personally find that the oblique pen comes in really handy. You see how it's helping me to keep my hand out of the way? Okay, and then we're going to do stroke number 6. So, down, down, down. And this is getting a little gunky, so let's wipe it off. And then stroke 7, a little fiber on there. Stroke 7 is another collection of strokes. And it looks like I really only need 2 in this particular version of the bird that I'm working on, so I'm going to skip the 3 7 strokes. And that's the kind of modification that I'm talking about. This bird's going to be different every time, so take the steps that you need in order to make it look fuller. What you're seeing in this worksheet is just a guide. And of course you do have guided exercises too. And I'm making reinforcement strokes for these strokes right here. Notice these are down strokes, but they are not thick down strokes. And in my version here of the Bluebird, this stroke right here, it just needs a bit of filler. So I'm going to go ahead and make a down stroke to give that some substance. And then we'll fill in this top feather here and the rest of the back with stroke 12. These are what I call S flourishes because they kind of look like a cursive S. Nice and easy. A lot of people with the Bombay ink, they'll complain that you have a lot of gradation. Like, you know, you notice that some of it's really dark blue and some of it's really light blue. I actually really love that effect. I think it's really pretty. But if you like a consistent ink color, probably a gouache is going to be a better bet for you than the Dr. P.H. Martin's turquoise. All right, so now we are on step 4. And when you're looking at this worksheet, just look for the numbers. So I tried to make sure that everything was different colors for you so you can see which strokes are which. And 13 is the green stroke that starts at the bottom there. So it's I think that's called a tail feather. I just love birds. I don't know their anatomy very well, unfortunately. So again, that's going to be S strokes. So we go boom, and then up and down, and up and down, really hugging the bottom of that tail feather. And I think in this case, in my bird here, it might be better to go up like that. So that's an embellishment that isn't seen in the original instructions. All right, so then 14, stroke 14, again, S strokes. That starts approximately right here because it's going to loop on to 15 here pretty soon, but we go, oh, come on, get started. I'm working with the Browse Extra Fine 66 nib, which needs a little extra motivation to start sometimes. So we're just making S loops, avoiding the very top of the legs here because we need to use strokes 15 and 17 to draw those legs, and those need a little bit of room at the top of the legs. So now let's do stroke 15, which just starts at the beginning of 14, and then it loops down and up again, and then down again and over, hugging the contours of that outline that we made. And then what we're going to do is make these tiny loops. So when you're making loops like these, you really need to throw stroke contrast out the window. Just be very delicate, nice, light pressure. And then we'll end with a downstroke that is that claw. And then 16 is just going to be, I guess, the bird's thumb. That's what we'd call that. Anyway, one of the claws. And then we'll end the piece with strokes 17 and 18. So those are just filling out the front foot. So we start 17 above stroke 14. And I don't have room for this first little loop here. So the whole goal is just going to be to hug the contour, the outside contour of the Bluebird. Because as long as you stay tight and loyal to the contour lines of the draft, this is going to look like a Bluebird. I mean, it already looks like a Bluebird. And then use what you learned drawing the back leg to do the front leg. So again, tiny loops. We're not too concerned with stroke contrast because if you exert that pressure to the leg while you're making these little strokes, then you're going to end up with some sloppy closed strokes. So we just are fine with that monoline consistency, and then loop down to make the talon. And then we finish up with 18. So again, little loops that finish with a talon. Perfect. Now I think my Bluebird could actually use some metallic accents because when are those ever out of place? So I'm going to use this blue from the TPK Fine Tech palette. Let it sit for about a minute. And while that's drying, you can go ahead and erase your pencil guidelines, assuming everything has dried, which the Dr. P.H. Martin's dries really quickly, especially here in Colorado where we have a nice dry climate. So this is my favorite part because when you erase these guidelines, the bird really comes to life. And I'm using a Staedtler Mars plastic eraser. I don't like to use the eraser on the end of my mechanical pencils because they typically get all gunky, and then when you go to erase, they bring that gunk onto the page. You can never get that off. So this eraser, always quite a safe bet. And now I'll bet our Fine Tech is ready. And this is completely optional. I didn't even plan to do this part, but grabbing some paintbrushes. I just feel like you can't really go wrong by adding some metallics to anything really. So that's why we're doing it. And I'm just going to add in some dots. So this is a nice icy blue that should enhance the rest of the blue. I like to add dots to this type of flourish art because it just gives it some character, gives it some dimension, especially when the dots have a metallic ink. Let's see where else we could fit a dot in. The thing is, I just can't help myself with adding more embellishments. I had really just planned to show you how to make the Bluebird and be done with it, but then I made this and it was like, oh, well this would look really cool with some dots. So blue metallic dots in particular. So here we are, and it is looking really neat. But that's the thing with creativity, I'm showing you how to create these birds in the worksheet set, and I'm really hoping that instead of feeling like you have to stay completely loyal to my instructions, that you follow your creativity on this. So if you're thinking, oh, well, this might look cooler if I added a little flourish here, or maybe if I put some downstrokes there. I want you to feel the freedom to experiment and make these birds your own. Alrighty. Is there any place else that could benefit? Maybe one more place. 2 more. Okay, I think that looks good. I hope that you enjoyed creating this pretty little Bluebird with me today. Obviously, I had a blast because we got to the end and I'm like, no, we can't be done yet. Let's do more. Because this type of project is just almost addictive in how beautiful it is, and how you can just use a series of lines to make such a lovely little motif. You've got free instructions over how to create this on the TPK website. They're there for the downloading. This section was taken from the Beautiful Birds Calligraphy Flourishing worksheet, and you've got the instructions, but you've also got a full page of practice. So what this is going to do is it allows you to really get acquainted with how to create this Bluebird through 3 tracing opportunities. And then you've got these 2 outlines that are provided for you that you can work within. So this is really good practice for stroke contrast. It's good practice for muscle memory. It's just a nice thing to fill out. So put on a good podcast, put on your favorite TV show, and just zone out and do this practice. If you're hooked on making this type of intricate bird motif, I encourage you to download the full Beautiful Birds Calligraphy Flourishing worksheet on the TPK website. In it, you'll find 4 other birds that you can flourish in addition to this bluebird. So that's going to be a flamingo, an eagle, an ostrich, and then a toucan, which according to Facebook, a little poll I posted, that's everybody's favorite. And it's my favorite too. I've even got one on my dress today. As you can see, everybody loves a toucan. So you can find that again on the TPK website. I'll link to it below this video. And here's the reason you have watched to the end of the video. You can get the worksheet for $1 off if you type in the code BIRDFAN in the apply gift card field at checkout. So you're going to go to your cart. Once you've put the worksheet in the cart, you'll see a field that says apply gift card, type in the code, and then click on the apply gift card button, and you will see that discount applied in your total. So definitely do that because you deserve it for making something this special. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I hope that you liked the full worksheet. Thank you so much for creating with me, and I'll see you in the next TPK tutorial. I always forget to say this part, but my 8-year-old niece tells me it's very important. Don't forget to like and subscribe.